Good evening, everybody, and welcome to at Sorry Dietetics Let's Instagram Live Chat Season 2. And I couldn't wait to say the word Season 2. Can you believe it? We're coming to the second season, and we had a break over the summer, so I hope everybody had a very nice summer break. And obviously, teaching has started at the University of Surrey this week, and we welcomed a new cohort of students, dietetic students, nutrition students, and food science students. In fact, every student at the University of Surrey first year. So welcome everybody. And obviously we have our second year, third and final year students here as well. And probably we have students from or dietitians from other universities or working in the NHS already. So welcome everybody. I am so happy to have this series back. And we always invite student guests as our first episode of each of the season, because obviously you are the future of dietetics, I would like to say. So and it's always good to have you to share your knowledge, your tips with our current students. Now, let me just quickly introduce, because I've done enough monologue. So on my right-hand side, top corner is Ellie Bland. So Ellie is currently our final year dietetic student. She just finished her placement and returned back to uni. So hopefully you feel not strange feeling, but like, oh, it's familiar, but then it's a bit strange coming to the final year back to campus. But then on my left corner is Holly Trishler. So Holly is currently our second year dietetic student, and then on the right hand corner is actually our fresh graduates and just graduated in July, and Safi Riley, and who's qualified as a dietitian now. I'm so happy she's got time today to share her experience as a final year or former final year dietetic student. And so welcome everybody. And I can see people are still joining, so I'm really happy. I'm very happy with the turnout as well. And just for everybody, you can either type your question in the question box, or you can just comment, and I can see the comment. I can read out your question as well, if they are appropriate, obviously. And so just I'm watching people, so don't put inappropriate comments there. Right, okay, let's start. So if you can just introduce yourself briefly, if that's okay. So let's do this from the sort of lowest year, most junior year to the most senior year. So let's start with you, Holly.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Holly. I'm a second year student. I'm 25. And do you want a fun fact, or?
It's up to you, really. And everybody, you don't have to say your age if you don't feel comfortable. So that's fine. Yes, one fun fact about you, Holly, then.
I like cooking, and I'm very excited for Bake Off to be starting again.
Oh my God, Holly's cooking, everybody. So after this, you need to follow Holly, because oh my God, her recipes are so amazing. I was just like, can you actually make some for me, please? And but it's so nice. Everybody, please follow her afterwards. And now next, let's move to Ellie.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name's Ellie. I'm now in my fourth year. I've just finished my placement year, which was really fun. Similar to Holly, I also love cooking. I actually trained to be a pastry chef before coming to uni, so maybe me and Holly can get together and do some baking together.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. You oh my God. Now I need to try two of your cooking and recipes now, and that's great. And move to Safi.
So I'm Safi. I'm a new graduate dietitian. I'm 23, and I think it must be a dietitian thing because I like to cook as well, and I love to bake. So looks like the trio need to meet up.
Yeah, I think that's great. Because all I can say is I love to eat. Probably rather than I love to cook. I used to love cooking, but I've changed slightly, and I'm not going to tell you why. Anyway, so if we start and welcome you, three of you, and thank you for your time as well. And if we start with you, Holly, because obviously you are currently year two student, but before that, you actually started another completely different degree, and you worked in a very famous business biscuit company as well. And could you tell us a bit more about that and why you made the decision to basically change your career and restarted to study dietetics?
Yeah. So I originally did a business degree. So I got a business degree, and I did it as a degree apprenticeship. And I worked for McVitie's for 4 years. Basically because when I left school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I didn't really want to pay to do a degree that I wasn't sure about. And this opportunity came up. But a couple of years ago, or gosh, a few years ago now, when the pandemic hit, I think like a lot of people, I kind of realised that I don't really want to be doing a job that I'm not really passionate about for the rest of my life. And nutrition had always been something that I was really interested in. Had always sort of been my hobby. It was what I listened to podcasts about. I read books about it. I'd bore my friends to death talking about it. And so, yeah, I just sort of started researching what careers there were in nutrition. And originally I thought I would do a nutrition degree, but I really wanted to work in clinical practice. So I found dietetics, and here we are.
That is excellent. And I think that's inspiring in a way, is to tell people, it's never too late. If you realize, what your true passion is, you can always change, your career path. And in fact, we have got many mature students on our course as well. And obviously they change their career and they probably realize they really like dietetics.
Yeah.
So never let, that stop you. If you think, this is for you, go for it. Would you say that?
Yeah, definitely. I was surprised at how many mature students there were on the course. It was really reassuring when I turned up on the first day and I didn't feel like the oldest by a long shot, actually. And it was, and I like the way round I did it. I gained a lot of really good experience from the business degree and from working for a few years. I came here with, some skills that have still really benefited me. I think, working in any area really gives you lots of good communication skills. It teaches you things like email etiquette and all those kind of things that sound a bit boring but are actually really valuable.
Yeah.
And it taught me lots about marketing, which has been really useful even now. So yeah.
I think that's probably why your Instagram is always very, very interesting. And I think I probably need to invite you to be a guest assistant lecturer. And when we're doing our social media lecture in 2 weeks' time with our first year students. But thank you for that answer. And if we look at all of you, obviously you're at a different stage of the dietetic course. In fact, Safi has graduated. How did you find your experience so far? So Holly, how did you find your first year experience, and Ellie, your first year, second year, and placement year, and then Safi, the whole course basically. And we've moved to Ellie first this time.
Yeah, I've loved it so far. I think we're really lucky on our course that you get to experience so much. So within just like the learning, you get to learn loads. We get to experience placement, which was really fun, and another great learning experience. We also do time for dementia, which was great. Be your best. We do so many sort of other things as well as just our course, which I think we're really lucky to do. So far I've loved the course, and I can't wait to sort of complete this year as well.
Excellent to hear. Like in final year, you're still enjoying it, so that's great. And what about you, Safi? Having completed the whole course already?
Yeah, it was amazing. It challenged me. It was super, super diverse. It was just an amazing experience. I think final year had to be my favorite, because kind of coming from placement, you're now seeing how everything really makes sense, how everything slots into place. And then public health nutrition was just brilliant, getting to debate and discuss the things that you see going on in the news, but how we look at it as dietitians was just brilliant. So there was something for everyone, which I really loved.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And so anything from you, Holly? Just done first, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I turned up with bucket loads of enthusiasm because I was just so pleased to finally be learning stuff that I was actually really interested in. And I just loved, a couple of the modules I did found really tricky, having not studied like chemistry or biology for a few years. I did find them quite challenging, but there was so much support from all of the lecturers. I think I was so impressed with how much sort of like personalised support that you would get from not only lecturers but from personal tutors and
A
mentors.
personal tutor is me, everybody, by the way.
So I'm stacking up slightly, but it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I know year one probably, we build up the foundation and everything. We gave lots of stuff, biology, physiology, etc. And then I think perhaps, in year two and year three, then you can see how that can build into your clinical practice. But that's great. Now, looking at when you just started the course, and what do you think has changed you the most, beginning and where you are now? Just one thing changed the most. Anybody can start.
That's a
Sorry. No, you go.
I was just going to say, I think we do so much about sort of communication skills. I think if you'd asked me to do this live sort of in first year or before I came, I would not wanted to do it at all. But I feel like we do so much with sort of communication skills and speaking to patients and speaking to doctors, so many people like that it's really sort of upped my confidence in that area. So I think that's one thing that's not super relevant to just dietetics. You'd learn it in other sort of degrees as well, but I think that's really helped me, and one thing that sort of surprised me about the course.
Yeah. What about you, Safi?
Yeah, I was going to echo a similar thing, like just being able to think on your feet, like being asked questions and knowing how to articulate a response is something that's increased over time. Like I remember the first kind of practice we had of taking a diet history and how you're just shooting off random questions to coming to the end and actually having a formula to work out the information you need and formulate a plan. Like everything just becomes more organized and a lot more natural. You're no longer ticking boxes off. It just sort of flows.
Yeah, and I think that's always good to have a sort of a format or formula at the beginning, but then at the end you always develop your own style, don't you? And I think that's a good thing to have something to start with and then eventually develop your own practice. I think that's the beauty of it, actually. What about you, Holly?
I guess it's about confidence again, but it's more from a studying perspective. I think to start with, I felt really underconfident and almost like a bit embarrassed about my lack of knowledge, and I was really, really nervous going into those first exams. And I was kind of surprised that I actually did do quite well, and it was just a nice lesson that actually, if you work hard, then it will pay off. No matter how hard, like how rubbish you think you're doing, you will get there in the end. And so I feel like this year I've kind of gone into it being like, okay, I can do this, even if it is quite hard work at some point.
Yeah, it is. I think as you said, as long as you've studied hard, and I think you always surprise yourself. I think sometimes we'll probably give ourselves too much pressure and also and set ourselves really high expectation about ourselves. But I think I think from a good point of view is at the end you always are satisfied with the results, and even you're aiming for 100, for example, it's challenging, but I think the result probably will be 80 or 90, and that's still very good. And I think that's excellent. Probably I think that's you partly answered to my next question is anything you've experienced in year one as challenging, how you overcome it. And I think you just said study hard basically, and also I think study smart as well. And I'm thinking of what's important and what's not. And if I come to you, Ali, and thinking of year one, which was 2 years, 2 years ago, and what do you think? What would you do differently? What advice would you give to first year students?
I think I was a bit unlucky with the year I joined because sort of it was 2020, so COVID had just happened. So I think unfortunately in my year we couldn't get involved with many things because lots of things have been cancelled. But I would just say to try and get as involved in as many things as possible and try and say yes to as many things as you feel comfortable with. I think that would be my advice.
That's excellent. I think you partly answered my next question as well, but that's fine. So if you're watching, if you're first year students, obviously we have a dietetic peer support scheme at the University of Surrey, and if you would like a mentor from second year or the final year, you can still register for that scheme and just check my email I sent this afternoon, and you can sign up and can meet your mentor next year. And I think one thing Ellie you probably want to share is hopefully we can. Do you think we can share about the society or?
Yeah, I think so. So very hopefully soon we'll have a nutrition and dietetic society up and running. It's still sort of in the works at the minute, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it will be up and running soon, and it would be lovely if we saw loads of people come and join. So yeah, fingers crossed it will be up and running soon and everyone can join.
Yeah, and the society will organize so many different events and talks from guest speakers. So that way it sounds very fun. And obviously, we also have the British Dietetic Association joining us, promoting the student membership, and they have a lot of events as well. And we always share the other study days opportunities with students as well. So watch the space. And as Ellie said, join as many as you can, and especially in year one when you still have time to do it. What about you, Safi? Reflecting really back 2 years ago.
I would say if I was going to say something to my first year self, it would be access all the support that's there. Because I didn't really utilize the disability and neurodiversity team until my second year, and them supporting me to get DSA and figure out all the softwares and programs that I could have, that just helped me to learn easier, would have been amazing. But what I can say is that in my first year, my personal tutor, I have to shout out Sarah because she was brilliant. She was a really big advocate for me in supporting me to get the help that I needed and just supporting me in any capacity she could, where I did a BTEC instead of the traditional A levels. So I kind of felt a bit at a loss with some of the science too, but she directed me to all the resources that I could access to sort of bring me up to speed and make sure that I did well in my first year and was pretty much at the same place as everyone else. So ultimately access the support that's there because there's so much.
Yeah, and I think as you said, Safi, that your personal tutor can always be the first contact because as you said, the university has so many services for students, but it's difficult to really know what service is out there. And I think the personal tutor can always tell you. So I don't know if you can still hear me because yes, because I literally just froze on my screen there. But yes, so the personal tutor can signpost you to different service, and as I said, the wellbeing service of the University of Surrey or the similar service at your own university. If you're watching from a different university, I think it's just great because I think nowadays universities focus so much on students, especially supporting students. I think that's just amazing. And the neurodiversity service, as you said, Safi as well. I don't know if it's because the awareness of neurodiversity has increased so much in recent years. I feel like the support for that has increased quite a lot as well. And even my personal interest has grown so much in supporting students and patients with neurodivergent needs. And I think that's absolutely so. University services, everybody. Excellent. Anything else you would like to tell year one students that we haven't really touched on?
Oh, one thing, make friends.
Yeah.
Make friends. Because I don't know, I had amazing friends in my first year and I've kept them to graduating and past. We still meet up and they can help, where you understand something and they don't, you can kind of swap notes, swap information, and really focusing on building friendships with the people on your course will help you all throughout your degree, to be honest, because the same friends I made friends with in my first lectures and sat next to read my dissertation and proofread it for me. So yeah, make good friends.
Yeah, and how any tips for making friends, and especially for people who are a bit shy, maybe?
Just say hello. I think everybody's as nervous about making friends as you are. So talk to people. If you have a similar interest, pick up on it. You know, for some people I met on my course, it was that we also attended another society together. And where you start seeing familiar faces, it's like that's a good person to try and connect with. So find your similar interest and build up talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Any advice from you, Holly and Ali, on this subject, making friends or extend your community?
Maybe make the most of the other opportunities that you get to sort of network, not only within your kind of year or your cohort, but also outside. So like with the BDA, you can join specialist teams that you can join. Yeah, specialist groups, and they sometimes put on events like conferences or webinars, and my NutriWeb as well, which has been, I've watched so many webinars through my NutriWeb, and that's been quite helpful with expanding your knowledge outside of what you're learning about, but also some of them is really relevant to what you're learning about even in first year. So that's really helpful.
Yeah, and we're not sponsored by NutriWeb, everybody, but it's very good sources you can go. They have quite a lot of very interesting webinars. And what about you, Ellie? And obviously, I think you had a very challenging time, and obviously in year one, I think you spent probably online, and then came back to year two, and I think that sometimes can be challenging because I think a lot of friendship formed in year one, and obviously when it's online, it's more challenging to form friendship. And how did you find that?
I think it was definitely hard, but I think before uni even started, we managed to find a few of us that were doing the course. So before I came to uni, I kind of recognised a few names, and that was really nice. And then when we got here, I was really lucky because we made sort of a WhatsApp group. So pretty much everyone on my course is in that group. So if we ever have any questions or sort of like, where's this class? We always just message in there, which has been really lovely. So I definitely think, try and get a group chat going, or just a way to contact your peers has been really helpful. And that's sort of, I've got some of my best friends through that, which is really lovely as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think back to what Safi said about, find people who share the same interests. I think the university have so many societies as well. And I think many of our students also formed good friendship in the societies. And obviously once the nutrition and dietetic society is up and running, you can always go and just mingle and make friends there. I think the good thing about our course is we're not like huge, not like 200 or 300. It's a relatively small cohort, and I think that's good in a way. People can gel very well, become closer, because you literally can't know everybody, because there's just not that many people there. And so thank you so much for this first year advice. But I really hope our first year students, you will have a great time. Well, I am sure you will have a great time. Now, I'm a very patronizing person, and I always tell my students that year two is very, very challenging, and compared to year one, it's way more challenging. And obviously, Holly is in year two at the moment, and then and Safi and Ellie have gone through it. So Ellie and Safi, do you have any? How did you find year two? Was it actually challenging, or was it just exaggerating, really? It's manageable. It's just a piece of cake.
Yeah, for me, I think I would go as far as to say that my second year was harder than my final year. But I think it's just because it's a little bit of a jump. Like, you're not just doing the foundational science, you're starting to get into some more things that are dietetic specific. And whereas you may have done biology and chemistry before, you've never done dietetics before, so it is going to be a bit more challenging. But I think being on the other end of it, I think I just panicked. And I think it wasn't as bad as you think it is when you're in it. So by the time you actually get to the exams and you've done the coursework, it's kind of like, okay, it wasn't that bad. So yeah, it's not as bad as you think it is, and you will make it to the other side. You will be a registered dietitian after you've done all your placements in your final year. So just push through the second year and try to enjoy it. Try to find the things that you're interested in and do additional research surrounding it to make the topic as enjoyable as it can be for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think, Ellie?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely found it more challenging, but it definitely was so much more enjoyable because it's so much more relevant to our degree. I found first year it was relevant, but second year is when you really start to learn like the clinical stuff, a lot more dietetic based things, and you also get a lot of brilliant sort of guest dietetic lecturers come in, which is fantastic. So it's definitely more challenging, but it's a lot more fun. And I think that's the main thing to remember. And I think as well, you sort of solidify all this knowledge on placement as well. So there was things I forgot, but then I got on placement and you sort of remind yourself about it again. So yeah, a lot more fun than sort of first year, I think.
Yeah. And I heard that quite a lot actually from my GTs and students is, you know, they do find year two have more sort of nutrition and dietetic related modules. But then I think it's good both of you confirmed it is challenging, but it's also very enjoyable. So I think that's the best, and they coexist together. So that's good. And I don't know, sometimes I love to, you know, just to set this expectation of it's very challenging, and students will just be like, oh, it's not actually, I've done it. So I don't know if that helps. Any question from you, Holly, as a second year student?
I'm not sure about questions. I'm just a bit scared, to be honest.
But yeah.
But I know it'll be okay. It's a learn. I got through last year, so
yeah. And as both of them says, you know, you guys will be fine, and I'm sure you'll be fine, and you will enjoy it so much as well. And now, obviously, Ellie just came back from placement, yeah. And at the very beginning, you said, you know, it was fun, the placement, and that's good to hear, because when I was a student, I found the placement year extremely stressful. I guess you probably felt that occasionally as well. Can you just tell us a bit more about your experience on placement? And if you can just tell us like what a typical day is like on placement, that would be great as well.
Yeah. So I'll tell you about both my placements. You do a B placement, which is 12 weeks, and then you do a C placement that's 12 weeks. So I did my B placement. I did sort of 4 weeks in a district hospital. I did 4 weeks in a stroke rehab hospital. And then I also did sort of within that going out into the community to see stroke rehab patients. And then I also did sort of 4 weeks in community. And then my C placement was all in a very big sort of teaching hospital. So totally different to what I'd experienced before. A typical day changed all the time, depending on where I was. So some days I'd be going out to patients' homes. To begin with, I'd just be sort of shadowing. I might sort of introduce myself and ask for a diet history. And then by the end of it, I would maybe be doing all of it, sort of giving them advice, giving the patients advice. And then also within the hospital as well. So you'd be seeing patients within the hospital, either patients that are within the hospital, sort of clinically unwell, or patients that are in outpatient clinics. So yeah, every day was different, which I loved, but I agree it definitely was stressful at times. By the end of it, I was sort of running 3 wards by myself, which even thinking back to it now, I can't really believe I was doing. But I think you just kind of get through it day to day, and you definitely get a lot of support as well. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it without the support.
It sounds like a very varied experience, and definitely, and I think you can see your own growth as well at the beginning of placement B and at the end of placement C, where you said you're managing uh, your own three wards. And anything you'd like to add there, Steffi, because obviously you've done it as well.
Yeah, I think my placement was definitely a challenging experience, which was only kind of compounded by the fact that it was in the height of the pandemic. So, you're fully masked up, you're on the wards, you're even seeing COVID patients, and that was just, it was crazy. But I think it's just look after your mental health when you're there. Like,
Yeah,
after you finish, when it hits 4:30 or 5 o'clock, whenever you finish, switch off. You're no longer a dietitian now. Go home, have a cup of tea, relax, especially if you're away from home for your placement.
yeah,
Just make sure that you're decompressing and then going back in the morning fresh, because you'll be better for yourself, it'll be better for your patients, and just enjoy it. I had two placements, but my first one was a 50-50 community and acute split. And then my C placement was all acute. And I think starting off in the community was kind of where the challenge was, because I took to community really, really easily, loved going to patients' homes. And then I had the consolidation half of my placement, my B placement in the acute. And it was like, oh my days, I have to check their bloods, which is not something you do so much of in the
yeah,
community. But the
yeah,
reality is you'll learn. It doesn't matter how long it takes. You'll get there. Your placement supervisors are there to support you. The university's there to support you. Even your peers, talk to your friends about how you're finding it. Because I know when I
yeah,
was struggling, I thought I was alone until I
yeah,
messaged my friends and they were like, no, we're in the trenches with you.
yeah,
And we all made it through and
yeah.
enjoyed it by the end.
Absolutely. I think that's so funny because when every time I want to seek reassurance from my friends or from my peers, I do not want them to tell me that, oh, you'll be fine, you're doing great. I want to hear they are the same, like they're on the same boat, they're struggling, they're stressful. I think I feel better hearing that. And I think that's so important. One thing you mentioned, Safi, is work-life balance, basically, and try to relax yourself a little bit after placement, because it's almost like a full-time job, isn't it? And then on top of that, you need to receive feedback all the time, and I think depends on the personality as well. I think my personality is you can give me feedback, but not all the time. So I think that's one of the reasons I found placements stressful myself. I even remembered on the last day when I passed, I cried in the room, so I passed, and I took a selfie of me crying as well, of course. And yeah, so I think that's quite useful a placement. So it is, I think, intense, but then you can enjoy, but then do speak to your peers and seek support from the university as well as your placement supervisor, and you will be fine. I think that's a very important thing to think is you will be fine, and don't worry about anything. Everything has a solution at the end. So that's great. Now we're moving to the final year. So you're in the final year now, Ellie. Do you have any question about final year, or what is your expectation of final year?
Uh, I definitely think it's going to be difficult. I think the dissertation part is what I'm most anxious for. It's something that you sort of don't ever do until you get to final year. So I think that's what I'm sort of most anxious for, but also most excited for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've already had students contact me about project already, and which is very keen, and I think that's good. And obviously, Safi, you've gone through this stage where students have to choose the project, 6 projects, I think, from a list of projects. And any tips from you of how to choose the most appropriate projects and how to do projects well? And obviously, Safi, I did your Viva,
Yeah.
which was absolutely brilliant. And your Viva, I have to say, and that's not just for the Instagram. It's indeed, it was very good. And so, any tips from you? Any advice from you?
I'd say read the abstracts really well. So when you get the list of abstracts that basically explain what the different projects are about, look at what's required of you. So if you know that you're not a person who likes loads of numbers, don't pick a big data project. If you know that you're a kind of person who doesn't want to be too deep in the science, then maybe something like a service evaluation is for you, or vice versa. So think about what you're interested in, because when it comes down to it and you're writing and you're refining, if you're not passionate about the topic, the motivation won't be there. So I did a scoping review of eating disorder services in the UK, and one of the areas that I'm interested in is eating disorders. So when I was writing my introduction, I was loving it. I was talking about the things I'm interested in. But if it was something I was less interested in, the motivation wouldn't have been there. So work with yourself is number one. Number two is you can't start too early. From you know what your topic is, reach out to your supervisor, try to set up a meeting to just have a chat about what's going on, what you might want to do, and get yourself a good reference management software. So I used Zotero to start. As soon as I read journal articles that were related to what I was talking about, throw them in there. And then when it's time to actually talk about them, they're already there. But yeah, start early. Take your time, and don't expect your first draft to be perfect, because when I think about the first draft of my dissertation, it was laughable. Honestly, it was laughable. But as you refine it, as you read it and put it away, and then come back to it a few days later, when you look at it with fresh eyes, you'll have a much better perspective. You can get your friends to read it. Because one thing I found with my dissertation is, because it was quite specialist, I've done all the data collection. It was primary data I was collecting, so I understood it. But had I written it in a way that somebody else would be able to come in with no knowledge and make sense of it? Not initially. And my friends were able to say that doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And just be open to feedback. It's not personal. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. That's okay. You're not a top researcher to have got everything right straight away. You're learning, and it can be enjoyable if you start early. So start early.
So basically choose a subject that you are interested in, and I think I'm glad and I think one thing you mentioned there, Safi, is we obviously are sorry over quite a wide range of different topics, and then I can meet different needs. And this audit, this service evaluation, this systematic reviews, this primary research, and there's all like to investigate, like analyzing data, etc. So I think that's very important. It depends on what your strengths are, and I think perhaps think of what you want to do after graduation as well. Choose something that's perhaps related, and obviously because you will develop quite good knowledge doing this research project, which will eventually help with your interview as well. So I think that's great advice, Savi. And then, so thinking of, did you find the final year challenging?
Parts, but I think I found it most difficult when I didn't have balance. When you're writing the dissertation, there is a temptation to sit there and fight with it.
Yeah.
So, before you know it, the sun's come up and you're still in the library. But that's what will make you feel stressed. Your dissertation isn't going anywhere. You will finish it on time. Go home and have your dinner, and then you'll find it a lot easier. The modules aren't as hard as second year, in my opinion. I enjoyed them so much more. Because you kind of know what you're talking about when you come from placement. You're talking about, even in the exams, what you know and what you understand. So it's not so nuanced. But that was my experience.
That's that's very, very good to know, though. I think that's reassuring as well. And obviously, I think in final year we'll focus even more on the science, nutritional sciences, which I think for a dietitian is quite important actually. So I think that's really great advice from you there. And obviously, not just Surrey University, but most of the universities do dietetics. Students start to apply for jobs probably in the second semester. And many of them start to do so at the beginning of the second semester, when they still have probably 4 or 5 months to go and to become a qualified dietitian. And did you do that, Savi? Or if you didn't, and when you saw your peers, applying for jobs or even getting a job, how did you feel, and what kind of advice would you give to the peers?
So I definitely started early. I started really early. So I think it was just before my second semester where I was like, right, And I did applications, and what I did was not applying to get a job, but more so applying to understand the application process.
Yeah.
Because what you find is that once you've written one supporting information section, the next one is easier and the next one is easier. And you can kind of refine the detail and practice matching your supporting information to the person's specification in the job description. And I was able to apply for jobs, which I haven't got yet. But there were times where I was applying for band 6 positions and getting to interview. And that's just because I was able to get that practice at writing the supporting information. Obviously, you get there and you don't have as much experience to back it up. But practicing talking to people in an interview setting, understanding the way the questions were set up, it's invaluable experience, and it allows you to, like, where I do actually want a job now, like I think I'm finished relaxing. I know that when I do the application process, it's not, oh, am I going to be any good at the interview? I've got a vague idea of how it goes on now, how I should structure the questions, because a lot of trusts, once you get to interview, if you're unsuccessful, will give you feedback. So I was able to get feedback from all of those. I did mock interviews with like other things outside of the uni to get feedback on my technique. So apply as soon as possible and don't get sad when you get rejected, because there are a lot of jobs, but I'm in London, which is extra competitive. There are a lot of qualified people.
Yeah.
The job that's yours will find you.
Yeah. And I always like to say is, when I was a student, obviously, and when I heard my peers getting a job, and obviously I was happy for them. But then in the meantime, at the same time, I felt really stressed because everybody's getting a job and I haven't even started yet. And then I think that's the peer pressure, really, I felt. And as someone who has gone through that stage, and Safi probably would agree with me, is, don't worry, don't have that peer pressure, because everybody gets a job at the end. And I think nowadays dietitians are in shortage, what is it called? Shortage occupancy list. So we're on it. So there's a national shortage of all the allied healthcare professionals. So you will get a job, and don't worry about, starting to apply too early. What if, you got a job and then you saw something that you are more interested in later on, and it's also not professional to tell the employer, sorry, I've seen a new job, I'm not coming, bye. Because dietetic is such a small world, everybody. So, and I think just to think it carefully, you can start to apply early, but if it's not something you really like, you can always wait. But don't stress yourself if you see your peers getting a job.
No, you'll get it when you're supposed to get it. At the end of the day, the interview process, as much as they're interviewing you, at the end you get the opportunity to ask them questions as well. Like, it's not the first person that wants you that you should just be ready to throw yourself at. Like, you have value too. You are a good dietitian, or you will be a good dietitian.
Yeah.
So almost interview them as much as they interview you, and look at their values, figure out if that actually aligns with you. Like, if you're interested in professional development, make sure that's at the core of what they believe. Or if you're passionate about equality and diversity, make sure they have a statement on that, and that's something that they're big about. Or if they're a disability confident employer, like, look at these things too, because it's where you're going to spend a lot of time once you actually work. So make sure it's a place you do want to be.
100%. That's such good advice. Trust values. And because I have to say, in the past, I thought trust values are just, formality, and every trust needs to have one. But then I think recently I saw a trust value, and I think I agree with their values. Then I think that's the point I started to realize how important trust values are, and how the trust values can actually attract the candidates. But that's really good advice there, Safi. Thank you so much. And now we talk about work-life balance, obviously, and it's not just about study at uni. And obviously we need to have fun. I think that's a very important part of the university life, is to have, enjoy the fun part. So how did you balance this life, or how did you manage this work or academic life and personal life balance? And did you do anything, extracurricular, or did you join any clubs or societies? So how did you do outside the academic side?
I think for me, a big part of my uni experience was chosen Christian fellowship. So we used to meet up like 3 times a week. It was where I could pray, where I could worship, where I could de-stress, and I would go out with them as well. But then also when it was just dietetics, like on our course, we'd meet up every now and then. We'd go out, whether it's for drinks or we'd all bake and bring it together. And it was just a nice experience. But making friends with people on your course kind of helped with that because they were able to message me and be like, okay, Safia, you said you were leaving the library at 6. Show me a picture of you outside the library to tell me that you've gone and gone home to eat something. Or if I knew somebody was in the library and they weren't leaving, I could bring them lunch. Stuff like that. So have accountability for your rest if you're a bit stubborn like me.
Yeah, I love a bossy friend like that. I am a bossy friend, and I say literally, you need to leave right now, and send me a picture. Yeah, I would say that as well. I think we would be good friends if we had studied together. Yeah, that's very good. And what about you, Ellie?
Yeah, I agree. I think from having a job sort of prior to uni, I found that I much prefer sort of working within normal work hours. So as much as possible, I'd try and work between sort of 8 till 4, 9 to 5. I mean, it doesn't always work out that way. So I wouldn't say fully stick by those sort of rules. But for me, that helped loads. And that meant sort of in the evening, I could do stuff with my friends. I could go out, even sort of within the house. In my second year, would do things like sushi night. And it was just really nice of just to get together, forget about uni for a bit, do something a little bit more normal, and then go back to uni sort of the next day, fresh, ready for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Holly?
Yeah, I think like communicating with the people around you is really important. In my first year, I was kind of doing studying and then had a part-time job, and obviously everyone's trying to have a social life as well. And I did find it quite hard to juggle them, and I felt quite overwhelmed at times. And so for me, it was important just to communicate with, whether that be my boss, to let them know that I had a deadline coming up and that I needed to prioritize that, or telling a friend that I was feeling really overwhelmed. And 9 times out of 10, they're probably feeling exactly the same way, or if they're not feeling the same way at that time, they probably have done in the past. So they're going to be able to give you really good support and guidance. And often just hearing like, oh, I felt that too, it's so reassuring. And that was really helpful for me. And a bit like Ellie said, having a deadline, a cut-off point in the evening. If I worked, I'm definitely not an evening worker, and if I work past 7 o'clock, I'm probably not going to sleep at all that night because I'm just going to be stressed because I'll be thinking about whatever chemistry I've just been studying, and I'll be thinking about that all night long. So yeah, having those like clear deadlines of right, I'm going to stop studying by 7 was important to me.
And I think I've learned from you guys as well, because I feel I'm working all the time and I don't have the deadline for myself. I just like constantly stress myself, a bit like you, Savia. So sometimes I'm just like sitting there and work, but it's quite important to actually say, okay, I'm taking time off now, and it's quite important because we'll be more productive after break, I guess, as well. And we are coming to nearly the end of the live chat, everybody, and I can't believe how time has passed so quick. And I feel like we can stay here and chat for another hour. And for people who are still in this chat, if you have any questions, please do type. You can either type in a comment or you can type in a question box. And we do have a question here, and I think we've answered one of them already. And the other one is, and I have to tell this question carefully because it's about interview. And so the question is, very super scared about interview, and what is it like, and what sort of questions could we be asked? Now, obviously, I did the interview, so I know the questions. I mean, you guys have done the interviews. I mean, you know the questions. Can I just ask you guys not to say what the interview questions are, but I think just to focus on what the interview's like and how people can prepare for the interviews?
I mean, for me, what I felt like was really important for preparing was to just get some, as much as I could, some like really well-rounded experience of nutrition, dietetics, and whether that was listen to podcasts, read books. There's nowadays there's lots of like this, like live chats that you can watch online. And I think that shows really enthusiasm, and that's something that you can reference in your interview, and it just gives you where you might not be able to get direct experience, because I know it's quite difficult to get like shadowing experience with dietitians nowadays. It shows that you've been sort of really interested and you can reference that. I think that was really helpful for my interview.
Yeah. Any advice from you, Ellie?
I think the same thing. I was really nervous as well, and I was sort of sure that I wasn't going to get in at all. But I think if you're sort of passionate for dietetics, that will shine through. And I also think like you don't need just dietetic sort of experience. So even if you've sort of done work experience anywhere else, but say you've helped people or you've spoken to customers, things like that, it still shows like communication skills and things like that, which would be useful for being a dietitian. So I wouldn't sort of come into the interview and think, oh my God, they're going to ask me loads of chemistry-based questions or things like that. I think just, you know, talk about the knowledge that you have yourself and your passion for dietetics, and I think that will help you a lot.
Absolutely. Great advice. And Safi?
Just not to overthink it. I think I probably was a bit unprepared for my interview. I didn't really do much prep. I just kind of turned up and was like, yeah, want to be a dietitian. But what I found is, like what was being said before, once you're passionate about dietetics, you've kind of already got it in you. And as long as you've got like a basic knowledge of healthy eating, then you can probably just bring up what you need to know. And when you're in the interview, if you don't know the answer, you don't panic and say, oh my gosh, I don't know. You just say, well, I think, and just let them know your train of thought, you know, and take them along the journey of what you're thinking. So the worst thing you can kind of do is panic because you psych yourself out. But honestly, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And I think obviously like the interview is for us to see you have really thought about dietetics or being a dietitian as a career, and how you have demonstrated, you know, you've actively tried to explore what dietitians do. And also, and we're looking at your, you know, your professional skills, or how you tried to develop your professional skills, so communication skills or reflection skills, etc. So it doesn't have to be like being a dietitian, shadow a dietitian, as Ellie said, you know, customer service and past, and Holly said, you know, how past the job, the skills and the insights can help with the interview as well. So again, don't be too stressed about the interview. And I think understanding what we're looking for is quite important. Now we've got another question is, so throughout your study, has your career goals changed, if at all, like over time, your career goals?
I think mine did. I think I started off thinking that, yeah, you know, general nutrition support on a ward, I'd absolutely love it. And then I did my placement, and then I thought, well, clinics sound good. And I had some experience of outpatient clinics for children, actually, and ARFID and in anorexia. And I thought, this is where my heart is. Pediatric eating disorders, you know, it's a really interesting field. And I will get my first Band 5 job that probably is nutrition support on a ward. But you get experience in those rotations, and then you can make a full decision about specializing. But through the kind of lectures I had in final year, I got to know what I'd probably be more interested in.
Yeah. What about you, Holly and Ellie?
I think when I started studying, I didn't think I was going to enjoy community. I thought that was absolutely not going to be part of my career. And then when I did my placement, I really enjoyed it, and it was really lovely seeing the patients in their own homes, seeing them probably a bit more comfortable in their own homes than they are in clinic. So now, although I don't know exactly where I want to go, I would definitely be keen to do a community job at some point. So I've definitely changed my mind about that.
That's great. I'm the other way around actually. I thought I would work in the community, and then after I finished the course, I absolutely would like to work in acute, and I had been working in the acute setting, and I loved it so much. So I did change over time as well. And what about you, Ellie?
I think I change sort of weekly. One great, then I'm like, oncology is great, like going into the sports industry is great. I think there's so many like different avenues that we can go into, and I think it's great that we sort of get to experience a lot of those on placement. So I definitely think I changed quite a lot, and I'm not really sure what I 100% want to do at the minute. Yeah.
We probably can have a final question and take one, and I think I probably would take one that's easier to answer. Did you do anything outside of uni in relation to nutrition and dietetics? Anyone can.
I mean, I think I mentioned it, but outside of uni, I've been watching a lot of like webinars, because it's been really interesting to see, or to study some aspects that we're not studying yet, and also just to hear from dietitians about what their experience of working is like. And I'm in the process of trying to get a job which is directly related to nutrition as well, which I would like to get before final years.
Yeah. Any other from Safi and Ellie?
Follow dietitians on Instagram. That was one of my favorite things. You get to see their perspective on like their specialisms, that kind of thing, and they'll often post when they're doing talks. So that's just another way of finding some extra resources.
Yeah, everybody, if you haven't followed me, it's at Lonely Pro. Just plug that in. Ellie, what about you?
That was pretty much my three I was going to say. Webinars, I watch a lot of those. They're really interesting. I follow lots of dietitians on Instagram. They're also great. And then my third one is magazines as well. There's a lot of good sort of dietetic magazines out there. And I wouldn't say I read all of them, because sometimes they come through quite a lot, but definitely. And when I have time and I read them, it definitely provides some extra guidance and things that is really interesting.
Yeah, and obviously, students, you can have free subscription to Complete Nutrition magazine, and I think the other one's called Network Health Digest as well, and that's free for students. I think you can have electronic copy and lots of articles there. And obviously you can join, if you are a student member of the BDA, you can join 2 specialist groups for free, and they have quite a lot of, activities for students as well. So lots of, opportunities nowadays compared to 10 years ago. So absolutely. So it's 8 o'clock already, just past 8 o'clock, and we've got more questions, and I'm afraid we can't answer that, but I think that's some of them probably we will support you basically preparing for placement A, for example, and some of you, if you study the depth of or detail of the course, you will find out yourself and throughout your study. But thank you so much, 3 of you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you everybody for joining the chat as well. And I had a great time chatting to you guys. If the people want to follow you guys, how can they find you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on my Instagram, which is @dietitianbabe, and I'll probably be that on YouTube when I stop procrastinating. So get at it.
Yeah, Dietitian Babe, everybody. Love her name. Ellie?
I think the best place to find me would be on the Dietetic Society Instagram page. That would be the best.
What's the handle?
Or I think it's UOS_Dietetic Society or something close to that. But if you search the sort of Surrey Dietetic Society, it will come up.
Excellent. And what about you, Holly?
I'm Holly Tritchler Cooks. I post mainly foodie videos at the moment. I'm trying to learn how to film recipes, which is harder than I thought it was going to be. It's harder than I thought to make food look good, but I promise it will taste quite good. And I am on LinkedIn as well, if anyone wants to connect on LinkedIn.
Excellent. And thank you again, everybody. And I hope everyone have a very nice evening. And goodbye, everybody.